Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on historic Route 66 with an explication request. If you have an explication request, you can send it to explicationrequest@guruexamprep.com. Here's today's request. The portion of a municipal bond's underwriting spread that remains after the syndicate manager subtracts the management fee is. It is very testable to know the components of the spread as well as the participants in a municipal underwriting. The spread is the difference between what the issuer receives and the investor pays. Sometimes it's helpful if you just make up some numbers here to illustrate whatever the question is asking. So I'm just going to make up some numbers. And let's say that the issuer is going to receive 990 for the bonds. Investors are going to pay par. That's typically you pay par in a primary market. And so the spread here is 1 point, and you should definitely know a point is $10. So now they're saying if we subtract the management fee, what component is there? Well, there are three individual components of the spread, and those individual components are the management fee. The management fee is typically the smallest individual component of the spread. That's testable. And here the management fee is $1.25. It doesn't matter who sells bonds. The manager, first among equals in the syndicate member, is going to get $1.25 or an eighth on every bond sold. The only person who can make the entire spread or collect the entire spread is the manager. We also have here what's called the additional takedown. So if you're a member of the syndicate and you say to the manager, what can I take down the bonds for? The manager of the syndicate, I'll just make up a name. Let's say it's Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley says to UBS, syndicate member, you can take down bonds for $991.25. Now, what UBS has to decide is where they want to sell the bonds themselves, their own distribution network, or where they want to build their own bracket. They might want to sign up or build their own selling group. Selling group members are not members of the syndicate. They sign a selling agreement with a syndicate member, and maybe UBS calls Fidelity and says, hey, would you like to join UBS's selling group? They say, sure. What can we have the bonds for? And they say, you can have the bonds for $9.95, right? So on the bonds that some other broker dealer sells, UBS is going to make the additional takedown. On the bonds they sell themselves, they're going to make the entire total takedown. The total takedown is not an individual component of the spread. The total takedown is both the selling concession and the additional takedown. So be careful what you're being asked. Here sometimes I like to ask about compensation. If you're a member of the selling group, it's very testable. No, you're not a member of the syndicate. You're not at risk for unsold securities. And they might ask you a compensation question here. So selling group members, Fidelity in my example, is going to make $5. UBS is going to make $3.75 additional takedown on the bonds that Fidelity sells. Now, the other component, individual selling concession, that's typically the largest individual component. As I said, the total takedown is not an individual component of the spread. So every once in a while, somebody will call me and say, well, you told me the selling concession is the largest individual component of the spread. I say it is. And they say, well, the total takedown is larger. I said, well, it is, but it's not an individual component. So be careful what you're being asked, right? The total takedown is two components. The total takedown here is the selling concession, the additional takedown. This is what UBS makes on the bonds they don't sell. I'll make up a hypothetical. Let's say that UBS takes down $1 million worth of bonds, and they give $500,000 to their selling group, and they keep a $500,000. On the $500,000 they sell through their own distribution network, they're making the total takedown, right? So that's not an individual component. Now that we have the numbers, we got the participants, let's actually answer the question. It says the portion of a municipal underwriting spread that remains after we subtract the management fee, right? So it's easier to do these if we have numbers rather than doing them in our head. So here, if we subtract the management fee, in my hypothetical, $1.25, we are left with $8.75, which is the total takedown. And so that is the answer to the question. It's the total takedown. I think this is a little less linear than the actual test question would be. But again, components of the spread in municipal underwriting, very testable. Participants, I will link to a lecture that I have on underwriting municipals. So you can check that out in the video description of the link. You can also put syndicates or takedown or selling concession into the channel search bar, and all kinds of more practice questions will come up. All right. Well, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And I will see you for the next explication request.